and welcome to the January 28th, 2020 Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. I'm Shay Woodbury, your board chair, and I appreciate your attendance. And I also say good evening to our viewers on Cable 2. Will you please rise as we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. We ask for blessings over these proceedings tonight, and that we are granted wisdom as we make decisions affecting the lives of all our Winston-Salem, Forsyth County young people. We ask for guidance as we attempt to do what we believe is best for our children. Finally, we ask for blessings upon everyone involved in the Forsyth County education process, including teachers, administrators, parents, and most of all, our Winston-Salem, Forsyth County students. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Our next agenda item is special recognitions. And the first one will be our school performance. Thank you, Dr. Cato.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury.
Good evening.
Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, members of the board, Dr. Hairston, stakeholders here and present with us tonight and watching on Cable 2. I have the honor tonight of being able to recognize many of our schools for their accomplishments during the 2018-19 school year. State Superintendent Mark Johnson issued certificates honoring graduation rates above 95% and school academic growth. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District has added the following honors, honoring high schools which met graduation rates between 90 and 95%, which was a district goal, schools which have exceeded academic growth expectations over multiple years, and recognitions for schools with the school performance grades of B or A. And so we have a lot of schools, and we're going to do this as efficiently as possible. They're lined up, and I would ask Chair Woodbury and Dr. Hairston to greet our representatives. So we're going to start with our high schools and honoring for graduation rate. So Atkins High School is here. Atkins represented by Ms. Irvin and Ms. Rexroad, who are instructional facilitators, and sit chair, and Ms. Jan Atkinson, interim principal. Atkins had a graduation rate of 100%. Our next school that we want to honor is the Early College of Forsyth, being represented by Assistant Principal Lisa Nakawatase and Principal Mr. Joey Hurl, who also is the principal of the Middle College and Assistant Principal. The Early College had a graduation rate of 100%, and the Middle College had a graduation rate of 99%. Our next school that we want to honor is John F. Kennedy High School. John F. Kennedy be represented by Principal Keisha Gabriel and Sit Chair Marcus Neal. John F. Kennedy High School had a graduation rate of 98%. Our next school we want to honor is Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy, being represented by Principal Mr. Reggie Hunt and School Improvement Chair Shanice McKinney. Winston-Salem Prep had a graduation rate of 96%. Ronald Reagan High School being represented by Principal Brad Royal. Ronald Reagan High School had a graduation rate of 94%. West Forsyth High School being represented by Principal Charles McInich. West Forsyth had a graduation rate of 93%. Mount Tabor High School. Mount Tabor High School is being represented by Principal Ed Weiss. Their graduation rate was 91%. Walkertown High School being represented by Misty Walker, principal, and Nathan Tolbert, sit chair. Their graduation rate was 91%. And East Forsyth High School, being represented by Principal Rodney Bass, their graduation rate was 90%. Congratulations to these high schools on their honor. The next group of schools that we would like to honor are those schools who met academic growth expectations last school year, and we're going to start with our elementary schools. I'll call them all out, and please hold your applause until they're all out, and then we'll shake hands and go to the next group. We'll start with Ashley Academy, being represented by Principal Scarlett Linville, Nakinga Wright, Instructional Facilitator, and Kenya Larned, Sit Coach. Bolton Elementary, Principal Cheryl Frazier, and Sit Chair Erica Abendalo. Brunson Elementary, being represented by Principal Jeff Fallen. Caleb's Creek Elementary, being represented by Principal Rita McFadder and Sit Chair Heather Robbins. Easton Elementary, being represented by Principal Colin Tribby and Alexander Prieto, Sit Chair. Forest Park Elementary is being represented by Principal Trent Watkins and Mandy Kane is the Sit Chair. Hall Woodward Elementary is being represented by Mr. Kenneth Jordan, Principal, and Kelly Petit, who is the Sit Chair. Jefferson Elementary, their principal is here, Ms. Debbie McIntyre, and their Sit Chair, Alyssa Godwin. Kimberly Park Elementary is also being recognized for this honor. They do not have a representative here. Mineral Springs Elementary, being represented by Principal Deborah Gladstone. Petrie Elementary is being represented by Ms. Brixius, is the instructional facilitator, Angela Dion. Dylan Willard is the Sit Chair, Tanya Little, TAC representative. And we'll pause there and let everybody shake hands and get the next group out. Congratulations.
Y'all are doing great. I wish we had more like y'all. I tell you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
This is just a reminder to our honorees that your certificates can be picked up at the desk in the front of the building on your way out. We're not giving them their certificates. They're going to get everything that's coming to them. Our next group of elementary schools that we want to honor for having met academic expectations, Piney Grove Elementary, being represented by Principal Brendan Elkins, and Sarah Finley is the Sit Chair. Sherwood Forest Elementary, represented by Mr. Jacob Lother, Principal, and sit chair Ryan Blaine. Smith Farm Elementary being represented by Principal Cindy Rash and Javita Stockton, Assistant Principal. Southwest Elementary being represented by Ms. Summer Jackson, who is the principal, and Sarah Ellington, who is the sit chair. Spees IB Magnet Elementary being represented by Principal Robert Ash, and Beatrice Odom is the Teacher of the Year and the kindergarten teacher. Union Cross Elementary is being represented by Ms. Trish Spencer, Principal. Ward Elementary being represented by Principal Angela McHam and Edwina Kane, the NC Star Process Manager. And Whitaker Elementary is being represented by Principal Sharon Creasy and Dania Addicks, Sit Chair. Congratulations to those schools, elementary schools.
Thank you for all you're doing. You're making us look good up here. Congratulations. Congrats. Hey, you are a star. Y'all are all stars up here. Thank you. Thank you. How you doing? Thank you. Thank you. Means I hate some coming together. Let me know when, okay? Congratulations. You are kidding. Can I come out there?
The same accomplishment, having met growth expectations last school year, we want to bring out our middle and our high schools. Flat Rock Middle School is being represented by Ms. Becky Hodges, Principal, and Danielle Anderson, the SLT Chair. Haynes Magnet Middle School is being represented by Principal Ms. Robin Willard. Jefferson Middle School being represented by Principal Shane O'Neill. Mineral Springs Middle School being represented by Principal Deborah Gladstone. Southeast Middle School being represented by Principal Stephanie Gentry. And Wiley Magnet Middle School being represented by Principal Lisa Bodenheimer and Proctor Administrative Intern and Catherine Finney, Sit Chair. Our high schools who met academic growth expectations last year, the Early College of Forsyth being represented by Principal Joey Hurl, Assistant Principal Lisa Nakawatase. The Kingswood School being represented by Principal Mr. Dupree and Sit Chair and Assistant Principal William Sutphin. Mount Tabor High School is being represented by Mr. Ed Weiss, Principal. Parkland IB Magnet is being represented by Principal Spencer Hardy, Carissa McDaniel, PTSA Chairperson, and Rhonda Higgins is a teacher at Parkland. R.J. Reynolds High School is being represented by Miss Karen Archie, Assistant Principal, and Stacy Jolly, Sit Chair. And last but certainly not least, West Forsyth High School being represented by Mr. Charles McInich, Principal.
Make us look good. Thank you. We need this way. We needed this good news.
The next group of schools that we would like to recognize are those schools that exceeded their academic growth expectations last school year. And we will start with our elementary schools. Cash Elementary, Principal Alicia Bailey, and Ms. Kelly Hall is the sit chair. The downtown school is being represented by Principal Andy Lester Niles. Gibson Elementary School being represented by Principal Ian Olson, and Alicia Smith is the sit chair. Kernersville Elementary School being represented by Laura Tiano, Principal, and Teresa Rose, Assistant Principal. Kimmel Farm Elementary School being represented by Katie Robinson, sit chair, and Carrie Campbell, current Teacher of the Year. Conoke Elementary is being represented by Dr. Sheila Burnett, Principal, and Nayika Utenham is the School Improvement Team Chair. Morgan Elementary is being represented by Ms. Ramona Warren, Principal, and Ross McNeil, Assistant Principal. North Hills Elementary being represented by Principal Tiffany Kraft, and Sharon Marshall is the School Improvement Team Chair. Old Richmond Elementary being represented by Brian Brookshire is the Principal, Aaron Mulhern is the sit member and fourth grade teacher. And Sedge Garden Elementary is being represented by Mr. Donald Wyatt, Principal, and Angela Reeves, Assistant Principal. Congratulations to these elementary schools for exceeding the goal. We want to continue recognizing our schools that have exceeded academic growth expectations, and we'll do our middle and high schools. Kernersville Middle School being represented by Principal Lisa Duggins, and Catherine Gundel is the sit chair. Walkertown Middle School is being represented by Ms. Teresa Raker, sit chair, and Principal Scott Muncie. Atkins High School, interim principal Ms. Jan Atkinson, and their instructional facilitators, Sonia Rexroad and LaShatina Irvin. And R.B. Glenn High School being represented by Principal Brad Craddock. Congratulations to these schools on exceeding growth last year. The next group of schools that we would like to honor are those schools who have exceeded academic growth expectations for 2 consecutive years. And we will start with Cook Literacy Model School. Cook is being represented by Principal Paula Wilkins, And Alice Day Clark and Mercedes Helton are sit team members.
Way to go, babe.
Meadowlark Elementary School is being represented by Principal Neil Raymer and Denise Wall as the sit chair. Vienna Elementary is being represented by the sit chair, Mary Atkins, and Principal Lee Cook. And Clemens Middle School is being represented by assistant principal, one of their assistant principals, Catherine Howard and Wendy Cheek sit co-chairs. The next group of schools we want to want to recognize are those that have exceeded academic expectations for 3 consecutive years. And we'll start with Griffith Elementary. Their new principal is Ms. Saritha Mitchell, and Jasmine Holland is the sit chair. Louisville Elementary is being represented by Principal Angie Choplin, Melissa Fowler, sit chair, Heather Barksdale, instructional facilitator. South Fork Elementary is being represented by Principal Janelle Gatling, Kim Jones, sit chair, and Danya Hairston, assistant principal. Northwest Middle School, being represented by Frida Smith, principal, and Jonay Hanna, assistant principal. And our 2 high schools that have exceeded growth for 3 consecutive years are Carver High School, being represented by Principal Dr. Carol Montague Davis, Ebony Jason, sit co-chair, Cecilia Tolliver, sit co-chair, and one more school we squeeze in there, Reagan High School, being represented by Principal Brad Royal. Come this way.
Well, it is a great way to start it, I tell you. Congratulations. Y'all did great. Thank you. Making us great. Thank you.
Our next group of schools that we would like to recognize, we have 2 schools in our district that have exceeded academic growth expectations for 4 years in a row. And those 2 schools are Clemens Elementary, Principal Dr. Wendy Brewington is here, Lee Dunn, sit chair and 5th grade teacher. And Meadowlark Middle School is also here, being represented by assistant principals Heather Ward and Lee Walters. And we have 1 school in the district that has exceeded growth expectations for 5 consecutive years, and that is John F. Kennedy High School and Middle School. Principal Keisha Gabriel and sit chair Marcus Neal. Congratulations to your schools.
Thanks for your hard work. Good God, thank you. Thank you for all you do. My gosh. I said y'all make this look so good. Come around again.
We want to recognize our schools that have improved their school performance grade to a letter grade of B. And those schools are Cash Elementary, Old Richmond Elementary, the Special Children's School, Special Children's School is being represented by Principal Sandra Gilmer and Karen Warren, Instructional Facilitator, Clemens Middle School, Kernersville Middle School, and Mount Tabor High School. And so our other schools that have a school performance grade of B are Caleb's Creek Elementary, the Downtown School, Jefferson Elementary, Morgan Elementary, Piney Grove Elementary, Southwest Elementary, Vienna Elementary, Haynes Magnet Middle, Jefferson Middle, and Meadowlark Middle. And squeeze the last two high schools in. R.J. Reynolds High School and West Forsyth High School also are B schools. Congratulations. And the last group of schools that we would like to honor are our A schools. And so we had one school improve their school performance grade last year to an A, and that is Reagan High School. And the remainder of our A schools are Clemens Elementary, Louisville Elementary, Meadowlark Elementary, Sherwood Forest Elementary, Whitaker Elementary, Atkins High School, the Early College of Forsyth, and the Middle College of Forsyth. Congratulations on earning an A school performance grade.
Our next set of special recognitions are the North Carolina High School AA Class 4A champions, East Forsyth High School Eagles coach Todd Willard. I think he's going to present the players.
What are you guys going to do? present the players?
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody requested you say a few words.
So, I don't talk very much. So, obviously, this is our 4A state championship team. This is our back-to-back seasons. We've won it here. We just played in Chapel Hill. The great thing, we don't have the whole team here. Obviously, this isn't the whole team. A lot of guys play other sports and got some academic things and in other clubs. So we brought just the good-looking guys here tonight. But that's my longtime assistant head coach at the far end. That's James Studevant. He was my first hire when I got there 17 years ago, and this is Kenny Yoder right here. He's been with me all 17 years too, assistant coach. Big thing I just want to say is proud of these guys, but proud of what sports and what it can do and how it changes a lot of these kids' lives. The state championships are great, but it's what they do outside of football that makes me the most proud. And right here are some fine guys. A lot of them, I got a few seniors here that are going on to play at the next level and continue their education. I'm happy they're going to play football, but I'm more happy that they're going on to lead become a better person and go to college and do all those things. So, just great kids. And once again, it's great what athletics can do for young people this generation, because many of them are lost right now. It's getting tough to grow, and just proud of these young men, because it's hard to be an Eagle. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All the good-looking boys that I tell you, thank you, baby. Thank you. Look at you. All the good-looking boys. Get on up here, guys. I knew you did. I could have guessed that. So you're the speed car. What about you? What'd you run? What'd you play? What position? You got it, too. Congratulations.
Can Coach Willard please come back? We have your certificate. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
Now we will have the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Exceptional Educator of Excellence presented by Mary Todd Allen.
Thank you, Dr. Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, Dr. Hairston, members of the board, members of the community. It's my pleasure to present to you Ms. Katie O'Connor as the 2019 Exceptional Children's Educator of the Year, Educator of Excellence. This award recognizes a teacher who has demonstrated excellence in meeting the needs of exceptional children. Katie O'Connor is an outstanding teacher. She has worked at Ashley Elementary for the past 16 years. She has proven to be an excellent teacher who positively impacts students and their families and her colleagues. She facilitates learning for her students and makes it possible for struggling students to learn. She herself has allowed us to share that she was a struggling reader herself, but because of the village that was surrounded her at her elementary school and her family, she went on to graduate from Salem College and has come to us as an excellent teacher. Please help me celebrate Ms. Katie O'Connor.
Our next agenda item is the approval of the agenda, although it looks a little different in order, but we're going to approve the agenda before we go to public comments on the agenda items because we need to make a few adjustments to the agenda before we approve it, and then that will give the community an opportunity to make comments on the modified agenda. Before we approve the agenda, there are a couple of things that are being asked to amend the agenda. So after I read these, we can have a motion to approve the agenda with the adjustments. So we need to amend the agenda to add the return to open meeting to the beginning of this agenda. Next, at the work session, the Buildings and Grounds Committee approved the Louisville Middle School construction contract, and that was inadvertently left off the agenda for the full board to take action on. And so we're asking that that be added. And finally, we would like to add a discussion and action item for the nomination of a legislative committee member. This application is due to the North Carolina School Board Association by March 5th, and then also we need to go back into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions or discussions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is the public comments on the agenda items. And first we have Val Young, and I will say that at this time we hear public comments on the agenda items. Please know we reserve this time to hear comments only on the items that are on tonight's agenda, either for action or discussion. Please direct your comments to me as the chair, and know that while we are not able to respond, I may direct you to a staff member that can answer a question when appropriate. We do ask that you be respectful, kind, and know we cannot talk about sensitive and private student or personnel information in this setting. While we hope it doesn't, should the comments become personal attacks, contentious, or otherwise disruptive, I do reserve the right to end the comment period. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and if you have more, you can always email us your concerns. Thank you. Val Young. So I've already been alerted that the timer is not going to go off, so I may have to let you know your 3 minutes up.
Just give me a nod.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairperson Woodbury.
Good evening.
The board, and Dr. Hairston. My name is Val Young. I'm the president of the Forsyth County Association of Educators, and I stand here with a couple of my closest friends in the support of the quarter-cent sales tax. My experience as a teacher and now as the president of the association for this whole 6 months, I have seen a great exit of quality educators. They're not leaving because we don't have great schools. They're not leaving because working conditions are poor. And they're definitely not leaving because Forsyth County has some of the best students in North Carolina. But they are leaving after making a decision on going to another county that pays them more money. We feel that this quarter-cent tax would allow us to put quality, highly qualified educators in front of our students every single day. That's what they deserve, and that's what we want them to have. This supplement increase will be able to help us recruit, reclaim, and retain the teachers that we have here. I also stand in support of our classified staff. Our classified staffs have not had an increase, and we feel that with this quarter-cent tax, it will free up some money for our classified staff. They're the backbone of our school. They're the people that bring our children to school every day, that feed our children every day, that love on our kids, and they also teach. So we're standing in support of our teachers and the supplement of this quarter-cent tax. But we also will not be great educators, and we did not say that the classified staff is the backbone of our school, and we want them also to have an increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Al Jabbar.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury,
Good evening.
Co-Chair Calvin Hayes, board members, Dr. Hairston. I come to you today to speak on Ashley. For some reason, I feel like I've been on a journey that I can't see the end of the rainbow. We have discussed Ashley on and on and on and on and on. I spoke to a county commissioner. There has not been an approach to the county commissioners to get funds that was in the bond that we can use to purchase this land. Now, we as citizens, taxpayers, we are tired and tired and tired of this continuous conversation about purchasing land that the school board says they have the money to do it. All we need is the go consent from the county commissioners. I would say to you, it's time, it's past time. We need to get some land. We can't build nothing till we get some land to put it on. So I would say to you, again, as voted in school board members, that we ask you to make a move on this so we don't have to make a move at the polls. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Alfred Harvey.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury, or should I say Dr. Chair Woodbury. I heard somebody call you doctor.
No,
I didn't know you-
not yet. I'm working on
I didn't know
it.
you had that.
I
just
was,
thought I'd say, I missed that. I missed that.
thank you for that clarification.
This distinguished board, Dr. Hairston. I want to echo some of the things that Mr. Jabbar talked about when he talked about Ashley. Because we've discussed this on numerous occasions with county commissioners, and they told us how much money they had set aside that we could fast track and build a school. But it seems as though the school board and others have a difference of opinion about where Ashley should be placed. And so you're waiting on grant monies from Washington, D.C. in order to build something because somebody promised that they would do something in the community. Well, I've been here now almost 70 years in this community. My family's been here for well over 100+ years in this community, and we've heard those same things over and over. It started out years ago, model cities. We're gonna build this, we're gonna do this in East Winston, and you'll see the fruits of the labor. I hope that you investigate what we brought before you. I just left a meeting last week with chairperson over at Wake Forest University, talking about the Maya Angelou Center and land that is available now that would be adjacent to the addition to the Maya Angelou Health Center. And that center would be right there off of 14th Street, right down from the 14th Street Recreation Center, and it would be in a pretty stable neighborhood. So when you start representing that you're going to give us an update, how can you give us an update when you haven't even done due diligence on land site? I'd like for you to really do due diligence. I'm going to stop right now because we had a meeting scheduled to start today at 6:30. Didn't start at 6:30. We had another meeting last week where people from the public couldn't speak. So I had to hold my peace until tonight. And I really don't have enough time to say all that I want to say. So I guess I'll have to send you an email. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Next, we will have Nathan Parrish.
Chair Woodbury, members of the board, and Superintendent Hairston. The Coalition for Equity in Public Education opposes the adoption of Equity Policy 1100 in its current form. The Coalition for Educational Equity is a local advocacy group of diverse persons from across the community who share a commitment to work for a public education system that provides educational equity and excellence for all students and for the well-being of our entire community. The Coalition submitted an alternative equity policy in June of 2019, and a member of our coalition serves on the Climate, Culture, and Equity Committee. We are invested and involved in this process. We believe Policy 1100 fails to offer the details and specificity needed to ensure equitable and just outcomes. For example, Policy 1100 speaks of a, quote, solid education, and that the district, quote, seeks to provide all children a significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education. But words like solid, seeks, significant opportunity, and high quality are vague and slippery. By contrast, the coalition states that an equity policy must, quote, ensure a sound, basic, free, and appropriate public education and environment for every child. Words matter because words establish expectations, and words provide the basis for plans, action, implementation, and evaluation. Policy 1100 also provides for an Equity Advisory Council, but the purpose, composition, and function of the council is left undefined in the policy. These details, we believe, are too important to be left for later definition. By contrast, the coalition states, quote, the board shall appoint an Equity Advisory Council comprised of external representatives from a variety of community and public educational stakeholders, and where the appointed council shall establish bylaws as approved by the board. The council shall meet and review on a twice-yearly basis the progress towards the goals and objectives, and raise issues and concerns to the board regarding equity, providing an oversight function to ensure an effective equity policy. We believe that words matter, that details matter. We also believe an equity policy is important and imperative. But we believe Policy 1100 in its current form is inadequate. Coalition for Equity in Public Education opposes the adoption of this policy in its current form.
Thank you. Next, we will have Sally Hirsch.
Good evening, Chair
Good evening.
Woodbury, Board, and Superintendent Hairston. As a member of the Coalition of Equity in Public Education, I support Nathan Parrish's comments and would like to add that the insertion of a broad definition of culture be included in the policy tonight before you vote. As it is written, the policy fails to include words, as Nathan Parrish stated, that guarantee or a sound, basic, free, and appropriate education. I want to hone in on the words sound and appropriate, which speak to broad concerns of culture. But let me first say that broad concerns were brought forth by our coalition member who sat on your Culture, Climate, and Equity Special Committee. And they were the concerns of, as Nathan Parrish stated, a diverse group of individuals. That group, the Coalition for Equity in Public Education, consists of the following: both male and female African Americans, both male and female European Americans, individuals with cultural ties to Hispanic and many other cultures, individuals with deep roots in the disability community, individuals with equally deep roots in the environmental community, individuals with ties and interactions to a broad swath of communities, from business to arts, sciences, sports, law, and medicine. In short, to the many branches of learning which our schools both expose students to and develop them for. All of these are social and cultural elements that affect students, and they guide them to pursue the happiness in all of its forms and to have full lives of liberty. Don't limit your definition of social and cultural factors. Race, ethnicity, socioeconomic, gender, language, proficiency, and disability are indeed extremely important, and so are other social and cultural factors, including the cultural considerations of our many fields of study point to. Let that sink in a moment. Equity and access to pursuing these fields, to living a full life of liberty with justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Alan Daniel.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury.
Good evening.
Members of the board and Dr. Hairston. I would like to respectfully disagree with my friends, Mr. Jabbar and Mr. Harvey. Money for a new Ashley is not included in the 2016 bond. If there's $25 million floating around to build a new Ashley, it should be used to raise educator pay. The next bond is unlikely to be before 2024, meaning that if a new Ashley is included, it will be at least 2026 before it is complete. We don't have that much time to create a new Ashley. So why are we talking about buying land for a new Ashley? Use that money for current needs at the current Ashley. I have asked, why do we need a new Ashley? What's wrong with Ashley? According to the people who maintain the buildings, nothing. Now that the HVAC has been built, there is nothing wrong. So I asked, what difference will it make? What will be accomplished by building a new Ashley? The answer I got was, well, it worked for Atkins. So I did a little research. New Atkins opened in 2005 with a capacity of 1,200 students. By 2011, enrollment was down to 279. It was considered one of the lowest performing high schools around. Enter Mr. Childers. Last year, Atkins was the second best high school in the district with 858 students. But here's the rub. 44% of those students are white. 37% are black. That does not represent the neighborhood around Atkins. That's because Atkins is 100% magnet. Only 58 of the 858 students who attend Atkins live in the Atkins district. The rest of them were dispersed and are still underserved at underperforming high schools in the district. If the goal is to open a new Ashley and make it 100% magnet and bring in white kids to make it an excellent school, y'all need to rethink it. I'm there 3 days a week doing my part to build a new Ashley from the inside out. I would encourage each one of you and everyone here to join me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Donald Dunn.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury.
Good evening.
The rest of the board and Dr. Harrison. Tonight, I'm representing the county PTA. We are so excited that the upcoming bond is coming forward. Tonight, it was heartwarming how we opened the meeting with so many excellent schools represented. But what we did not see are each one of the teachers and staff members who put in those 8+ hours every day doing what's necessary to get our kids prepared for future. For us to, so we only may have seen the majority of our schools, but we did not see every heart that was touched every day with our kids. For these teachers and professional people, and that's what they are, they're very professional, here represented tonight as well as in the audience at home. It is very powerful that we step up, and as the PTA, we're going to be 100% behind it. We're now organizing to have representatives at early voting sites on every day of early voting. We're also going to be there on the day of election. We're encouraging the community to come out and support the bond, as well as we're going to have a forum, a training session on February the 4th down at the Central Library at 6 o'clock. If you have community members or people engaged, want to come out and learn what we're going to do, we strongly encourage them to come out. Thank you for all that you do, and thank the educators and the other professionals in the room for what they do preparing our future here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County.
Thank you. Next, we have Katie Sonnen Lee.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know we did.
Good evening. My name is Katie Sonnen Lee. I wanted to start out by commending the teacher from Ashley who won the award for Exceptional Educator of Excellence. There's a lot of excellence in that. Katie O'Connor, we're so excited that she's at Ashley, and my mother-in-law is a special ed teacher, and I know how wonderful and challenging and fantastic that job is and can be, and it's really exciting to see her here. We're also really hopeful that we'll get some good news about the Ashley situation and that we will find funding whether or not this grant comes through, because we have been waiting for years and years and years to build a new elementary school in East Winston, to build a new Ashley, which has suffered, as you know, from years of mold and other issues. I know also that the equity policy is on the agenda tonight. I know there's been a lot of work put into that on all fronts, and I am recognizing that and appreciate that. But I want us to always remember that equity is more than just a policy. The work doesn't stop once we approve a policy. That's just another step on the path of working hard every day for our students and constantly questioning and interrogating what's going on, why things are or are not working for certain students. Equity has to be a metric for how we judge ourselves every day, and whether we're giving all students the opportunity for a sound basic education as is their constitutional right in this state, as was just decided last week. I also want to say thank you for amending the agenda before the public comments so that we can comment on things if we want to. And also, can we possibly get this calendar back on the back of the agenda? It was super handy before, so that we know what meetings are coming up, especially since there's been the change in the schedule and I'm still not totally clear on everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Rhonda Mays.
Greetings, Chairwoman Woodbury, the board,
Good evening.
and Dr. Hairston. I'm Rhonda Mays, a school social worker in this district, and I'm standing here in support of the quarter-cent sales tax. But I also have some questions. I sat on that committee that studied and looked at how we would approach the supplement and increase for our classified, our education support professionals. And I just want to make certain we haven't forgotten about that. I seem to remember that we were sitting in this room and you voted on 75% of the funds going for teacher supplement and 25% going for classified pay increase. So I hope we haven't forgotten about that. I seem to remember a resolution that was passed. I hope you haven't forgotten about that. And I hope you haven't forgotten about the number of times I've stood before you and asked, where is the pay increase currently for our education support professionals? I do appreciate the evaluations that have been going on concerning the benefits cliff. That is real, and it's important that that is considered. But at the same time, we may need to be creative and just making certain education support professionals have more money in their paychecks, and also speaking directly with them to find out what they're needing. Because with a number of them working 2 jobs, maybe they can work that second job a little bit less if they get a little bit more money in their main paycheck. Maybe they'll have more time with their family. Maybe they will feel appreciated. So I'm just standing here tonight saying, please don't forget what you already agreed to do when we started out on this process. And I'm looking forward to seeing that in action. Thank you tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Sam Ball.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury,
Good
members of
evening.
the board, Dr. Hairston. I stood before a slightly different board in the fall of 2018. I know there were a couple familiar faces that are still here. When I stood up to spoke, I was still very, very new to the teaching profession, but what I had to say is still a fact, that the supplements in this district are still entirely too low for the size of the district that we are and the quality of education that we are attempting to provide for our students. If we are going to truly change and transform and improve the lives of not just the children of Forsyth County, but everyone in this county, we have to do what is necessary to bring in the highest quality educators to help us reach that goal. So please, I'm asking not just you for your support to help us get this quarter-cent sales tax increase, but also everybody in here, because we all have to work together to make this happen, y'all. It's not just about the people in this room, it's about everybody who is not here tonight. They need to be a part of this conversation too, because this affects everybody. But I also do want to echo what Ms. Rhonda Mays just said, okay? If we are focusing on the teacher supplement, guess who doesn't have a supplement at all? Classified educators. If we continue to make them feel as though they are overlooked and unappreciated, you're not just going to have teachers leaving the district. You're going to have the classified educators leaving the district as well, leaving the school system. And we cannot afford that. So thank you for all the work that you do. I hope we continue. I hope we work together to make our district the best district in North Carolina. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is the approval of the January 14th, 2020 work session minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion or questions? I would just like to encourage the community to make sure that they always, or you all always, check our agenda for this board meeting so that you can see the minutes from the work session, so that you can definitely be, bless you, abreast to our work session outcomes. And it will help you to definitely follow this new structure. Tonight, you will not per se hear a report from Buildings and Grounds, but if you go to the minutes of our work session, you will see all of the outcomes of that work session. But of course, tonight's agenda is built from the work session, and everything that we would have reported out to you in committees kind of would be redundant. So it's a new way, and I know that, like the superintendent says, that the only person that likes change is the baby, and the adults, you know, it takes a little harder, but we appreciate your patience as we move through this new process. Any questions or further discussion about the approval of the January 14th, 2020 work session minutes? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the discussion items, and first we have an update on the property for Ashley. Colin, will you be able to come up and give us an update?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Hairston, and members of the board. I do wanted to give you an update on the Ashley property. I'd update you, I think, at the work session on January 14th, but we, as I mentioned to you then, we do have a potential site for a new Ashley Elementary, and we are in negotiations on a price for the property. The confidentiality of that would prohibit me from getting more specific just as we make those negotiations. I do want to clarify that this board approved that we take savings from Southeast Middle School traffic project, Northwest Boulevard traffic project, and Parkland High School traffic project. We had some savings associated with those projects, and this board approved in December to request that those funds be transferred to a fund for the purchase of land for Ashley. We did make that request. The initial letter was sent the second week in December to Forsyth County. And I think I did tell you at the January work session that they had some clarifications that they requested on that letter. We've been in discussions with Forsyth County. Those modifications have been made, and a final letter was delivered to them last week. So we have requested formally that those funds, that the savings from those projects at your request be transferred into a fund for the purchase of land for an Ashley Elementary. That's kind of where we are on the update, and I'll take any questions.
Colin, do you mind or can you tell us how much savings we have from those 3 projects? Is that feasible?
It is. I'm going from memory, Ms. Calvert-Hayes. I think it was in the neighborhood of about $805,000, if I'm remembering correctly. I apologize for not having that number in front of me, but that's what my memory serves.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, Cola, since you're up here, do you want to go ahead and do an update on the property for Brunson unless there's
I will be glad to.
Okay.
You can see on the information that we provided to you, again, this is just a little bit of update on where we are from things that I delivered to you or I presented to you at the work session. We have been engaging in a phase 2 environmental study, which is very common for the purchase of any property. We'll do some testing to make sure we know what's going on. We've done the drilling. We had a preliminary meeting last week with the testing agency. Everything verbally was favorable. We did request some additional testing just to kind of ease our minds, so we've asked for that. They actually mobilized some of that work yesterday, and they'll be wrapping it up this week. We anticipate a report from them by the next work session to be able to present to you. We've been in discussions with some of the neighbors in the area, some area ministries and other businesses. We are arranging for some Brunson PTA with Mr. Fallen, arranging for some collaboration between the 2 groups, just as kind of a kickoff to being in the area. We've also been have reached out to a group called Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which is kind of like the local area for the businesses and residents in the area. So we're trying to make contact with them about being a part of their group that meets, I think, maybe every month. We met, as I told you, at the work session. We met with Duke Energy, who has purchased some property for a transformer or a substation diagonally from our property. Met with Jimmy Flythe with Duke Power, and he did confirm that were their plans. They have a need to supplement and provide more power for downtown. So that's what this substation would do, and the plans for that are to be operational by 2024. He's got about a 1-year construction time, so we're still 3 or 4 years off, 2 or 3 years off before we start seeing anything going on there. Just told me it would kind of look like a typical substation, but he has made commitments to the city council that there will be screening, and it will be, in his words, the most attractive substation in downtown Winston-Salem, if that means a lot. So, we continue to move forward with some cost analysis of constructing a new building. As mentioned to you at the work session, we're proceeding with the impression that we're not necessarily going to try to save the existing building if it is cost prohibitive. We're looking at some measures that would bring some homage, if you will, to the property and some things that went on in the property. We are continuing discussions with the city on some infrastructure. We have also had a very favorable meeting yesterday with the entity that has the parcel south of ours under contract, and he is very open to the possibility of us purchasing some additional land in some areas that he has under contract. So we're in the process of trying to figure out what that number looks like and how big of a parcel of land we'll need. And we do have another community meeting set up for Thursday, if you want to write this down, for Thursday, February 6th, from 5:30 to 6:30. It'll be another drop-in type session. We'll focus on mainly the design of the building, not necessarily for a specific location, but for a design, what kind of things you're looking to see in the building. So we'll have a drop-in session open to the community. I think we've sent the word out by Pete's Jar. That will be in the gymnasium, drop in from 5:30 to 6:30. You have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we will have an update on the classified salary study by Dr. Hairston.
Thank you. If you go to the next slide for me, Kevin.
Chair Woodbury, members of the board, I'm pleased to bring to you a report on our classified salary study. People have asked, why a classified salary study? Teachers are paid on a schedule that's consistent across grade levels and content areas, and we have 50 position types in our classified categories. So it's important we look critically at each category of employment to ensure, number one, that they're on the correct salary schedule, and number two, that we're being fair to them relative to using our market analysis data. And so at this point, they've analyzed 50% of the district's position types, and this was as of last week actually, drafted a salary schedule which will include some options for us and relative to increasing pay and increasing hourly rates of pay. They've analyzed position placement compared to placement on the salary schedule, which is a manual process, and they are documenting current salary and experience, granting to be sure that people are placed correctly. It is my anticipation to bring to you, we've been working on budget since December, some options for increases in classified salary schedules. We recognize that early on that by placing classified, restricting our classified and certified staff to the 1/4 cent sales tax would leave little increases for both categories of employees. And so allowing an opportunity to address our certified staff through the 1/4 cent and using those as Ms. Young had mentioned, freeing up some dollars for classified would probably yield more dollars, or will yield more dollars for everyone. And I'm confident that we'll be able to do that so that everyone sees a good increase and it doesn't slight anyone. And so we'll finish the study within the next 2 weeks and bring a recommendation to the board at the committee meeting relative to increases in salaries for classified staff. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Hairston, I think Board Member Parker has.
Once this is finished and they make the recommendations and we approve them, when would they go into effect this year?
Yes, ma'am.
It's starting, after we approve it?
In July for the next
July,
budget
so it
year.
would go into the next year,
Budget
contract
cycle.
year and
Yes,
budget
ma'am.
cycle. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have the kindergarten enrollment countdown for kindergarten by Vanessa Osborne.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury.
Good evening.
Other board members, Dr. Hairston. Countdown to Kindergarten was created to provide equitable access for the enrollment process for our families in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools for our rising kindergartners. Our timeline here shows that we have met with principals and data managers to introduce the event. We met with the curriculum committee as well, and our school and local outreach campaign has begun. School transition teams have begun meeting to plan this event. I've already seen on at least 4 schools' websites documentation of their flyers and information that they're giving out. And every school, when you come to their web page, has a pop-up that comes up and reminds everyone about the event to come out. We are also going to be holding that event at the same time, at the same day, all over the school district. So February 20th, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And after that day, the data managers will report to us the number of enrollments at their school. And on or before March 2nd, 2020, we will be given those enrollment numbers so that we can determine the underrepresented areas in which to bring out our pop-up welcome centers. And those pop-up welcome centers will allow us with Wi-Fi access to enroll students for kindergarten. Online enrollment is available for all for all families, beginning the 1st of February and the February 20th date, we will also have access to computers at every school so that families can enroll there as well. And if they've already begun the enrollment process, they'll just finish it up on the 20th and then get their chance to meet the teachers, tour their school, meet the staff and administration there, and really get a feel for what their residential school is like. Then when it comes time to make your choice, if you are choosing other schools, you'll have that leeway between February 20th and March 30th when the in-zone choice opens and the magnet school application process is reopened for families to tour other schools and check out the other places that are available for them. But that February 20th date is really important for the residential school, the home school, to get their chance to really present themselves to all families and put their best foot forward and make it known what really shines about their school. We do have, you might see this weekend on the back of the Winston-Salem city buses, we have advertisement going up about this event so that families all over will see that this is a district-wide coming together. It's all happening at the same time in the same place. There are also yard signs that are being printed, and I will have out to each school and also in the community, different businesses and community centers. Parks and Recreation let me know today they will have our flyers and posters up at every single one of their community centers. We've also got teams that will meet at each school of the family engagement coordinator, their bilingual assistants, kindergarten teachers, all of those folks in the school, the data manager who know where the neighborhoods are and where the children and these families can be found. And they will go out into their neighborhoods to make sure everyone knows about the February 20th event. And then I will go with our pop-up welcome centers in March and April back to neighborhoods that we didn't see come out on February 20th. Does anyone have any questions?
Board Member Parker has a comment.
Well, being a preschool director, I received 2 flyers today from schools, and so I know that the word's out and it's being put out to parents. So thank you very much for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question too. Are we going to provide a checklist for families so they know what they should be doing with their rising kindergartner prior to school starting in August?
We are working on a district-wide family readiness checklist.
Great.
Well, we have a family readiness checklist, but we also want one for school readiness like you talked about.
Right.
It's really important that we know how many children are coming so that our schools can be ready for the students, and that's one of the big reasons why we want this early enrollment event to kick off so that the schools can be prepared. And then also for some schools, they would like to do a screening event later. They like to ask families back just to get to know the staff a little bit more and for the children and families to start interacting with each other. And so part of that will be this readiness checklist that we're working on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, we have decision points with Rusty Hall.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chair Woodbury, members of the board, Dr. Hairston. It's a great opportunity to share with you this decision point partnership that we are establishing with our friends at the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. We're also working with Moms Demand Action and our Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. This program will help us work with our 7th grade students in developing a curriculum to make better decisions. As we know, our middle school students are in an interesting time in their life, and it's an important time to really teach them about decision points. And so you can see here that this falls amongst the 7th grade health curriculum. And Sarah Harmon, our program manager for health and PE, has been a valuable resource in developing this partnership. We were approached by the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office in developing this partnership. They had a curriculum that they had come in contact with in Fayetteville that was used in the city schools there called Decision Points. And so when they presented it to us, we really wanted to take it and expand upon it and create a real big unit on decision making. And so working with our 7th grade health teachers, we're going to develop a curriculum around decision points, around making good decisions. And then our Forsyth County Sheriff's Office SROs will come in and teach this decision points curriculum. And this curriculum is centered around how to make better decisions, and especially around gun violence and access to firearms, which is very important during this time. And so working with that, and then having our health and PE teachers close out the lesson, the unit, by presenting goals and having students create goals for making better decisions. And then partnering with Moms Demand Action to present their Be Smart curriculum to our parents, which is all about, it'll be an after-school event, and that's all about parents and community around gun safety and housing guns in their home and different things that they have in that curriculum that is a state curriculum. So you can see here we have kind of laid out, this is a 5-day unit that will be a partnership between our health teachers, and then the Decision Points curriculum will kind of come in the middle with our partnerships for our SROs. And so I met with the principals today that are going to be at our pilot schools. And our pilot schools we're going to use that have SROs from the county, the sheriff's office already. And so those will be Philo Hill, Flat Rock, Clemens, and Walkertown. So they're spread out. That's a good variety that'll give us some good data. The Decision Points curriculum has a data partner with UNCG, and so they help us collect data, and we'll look at the data at the end and come back together and with our committee and say, this worked, we need to tweak this in order to roll it out bigger and better for next year. And so over the next couple of weeks, our team will meet and kind of nail down the logistics of putting this into practice, and hopefully come March we'll be ready to roll it out in our middle schools. And once we have those dates and those logistics, I'll be glad to share that with you guys so you can pop in and see it in action. And then coming back in May and looking at how do we improve this and how do we scale up to roll it out to more schools. Any questions?
How many kids can you accommodate in a program like this, with it being at different schools? What is your kind of estimation of how many kids we hope will take part in this?
So through the pilot, we'll be able to hit every 7th grader in all 4 of those schools. So I don't have that number right in front of me, but over the course of these few weeks, we'll be able to pilot in that. And hopefully next year, we'll be able to hit every 7th grader throughout the district, since this really fits nicely with the curriculum the state has provided and the standards the state has provided already.
Thank you. I think this is much needed, and I really appreciate the partners that are teaming up with us to be able to become a part of this and let our children know how to make really good decisions. So thank you.
Thank you, Rusty. Next, we have the State Board of Education approved social studies graduation requirements update by Rebecca McKnight.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury, board members, and Dr. Hairston.
Good evening.
We have had some changes at the state level with the graduation requirements for social studies. And so this slide very quickly goes over them. So quickly, one of the things that's happened is that the Economics and Personal Financial Literacy course, also called Economics and Personal Finance, that all rising ninth graders, so any student who is currently an eighth grader, when they begin high school next year, they will be required to take this course for graduation. And so that course will be offered in our district to students when they get to 12th grade. The state board recommended 11th or 12th grade, and we have decided that 12th graders would take that course. The second thing is that all students who are currently in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade now will have the option to select their own social studies course that will count for the 4th graduation requirement. All students in our state have to have 4 social studies courses in order to graduate, and for the next 3 years, beginning next year, in 2021, all 10th, 11th, and 12th graders will be able to pick. So if they want to take African American Studies or Latin American Studies as their 4th course, right now it's offered as an elective, but for the next 3 years, they'll be able to take one of those courses and it will count for their graduation requirements. And so students have to take a world history, they have to take either civics and economics or the new civic literacy class, and they have to take an American history class. And so they can choose to take American 1 and 2 and be finished, or they can take American 1 or American 2 and then another social studies course. So this will provide the opportunity for our students, even if it is only for 3 years, it'll provide them with some choices about what to take for their 4th graduation requirement. So, are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. The next discussion item is the leave on days school closed due to inclement weather. Dion is going to give us an update on the administrative regulation 4151.7.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, board members, and Dr. Hairston. I do not have a PowerPoint, but I will provide a very brief overview of the changes that are being made to Administrative Regulation 4151.7, which governs the leave that employees can take and what the requirements are whenever there's inclement weather. As we discussed during the policy committee meeting during the work session on the 14th, there have not been many substantial changes to this policy. However, there are some changes that are designed to clarify and make the policy a little bit easier to understand. And so I'll go over those really quickly. In the definition section, we added a few definitions for exempt and non-exempt personnel, just so those terms aren't so confusing when they're used in the policy. I will also say that since the last discussion, I did add a definition for essential employees because those are individuals that will be expected to report to work whenever there is inclement weather. And so it will help for our purposes of announcing when we say school is closed, essential employees are expected to report to work, the policy will define who those employees are. So I did add that definition. In the attendance regulations portion of the AR, for lack of a better word, we cleaned that section up just to make it a little more clear as far as who's expected to be to work and who's not. We did add a few groups of people in that category of essential employees. So we added the superintendent's executive cabinet, director of security and safety, and a few other folks who weren't explicitly named in the AR before. We named them now. They were expected to report to work, but we just clearly named them in the policy because they weren't named before. Under the procedures for making up time and making up school days, we clearly outline what options employees have whenever they miss work or school is canceled. And those options have always been there for employees. It just had not been clearly spelled out in the policy. And so the policy details how employees can choose to use accumulated comp time, annual leave. They can work with their supervisor to make up the time elsewhere, or they can take time without pay. And I think the most substantial change to this policy is that now school-based employees, whenever there is a delay, also receive a delay. So for example, if there's a 2-hour delay because of ice or weather, school-based employees are expected to report now 30 minutes before children are expected to report. So that's something that I know has been kind of a hot topic in recent years, but that is clearly defined in the policy. So are there any questions? I do want to say that Ms. Crowley did point out a couple of technical changes earlier today, and so I made those are reflected in the policy.
I would like to say I am so happy to hear about this policy change because we have employees who have children, and if the roads are bad enough to delay school for the students, it's bad enough to delay school for the employees as well. We value our employees, and this is one way for us to show that, so thank you.
Well, it's a moot point now, but I was just going to say, could they go on and scroll through the whole policy because it only had the definitions up, and I noticed some folks out there taking pictures of the policy, so if we could kind of scroll through the next two parts if anybody else wanted to get the rest of those if you didn't see those.
And I will have the policy, the revised AR up on the website tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the quarter-cent sales tax update by Dr. Hairston.
I know after public comment, our meetings seem to be calm, but this is something we ought to get excited about. We really should. So my role this evening is to share information with the public and with the board, and that's on March 3rd. Our voters will decide on an additional quarter-cent sales tax to increase teacher commitments, or teacher supplements. And I want to say that I want to thank our Board of Education because at no time have they demonstrated any desire to leave our classified employees out. They have been very much in my ear and in our new CFO's ear saying this must happen. So we have it, we got it. Beginning January 21st, our district or our county started executing a daily plan to share information. We felt it was important to share the information. We certainly, as employees, cannot tell people or suggest to people how to vote. We can't as employees, but you can. And so Brent has done a nice job sharing information because we know the ballot will look a little different than what we see in here this evening. And there's the ballot message. Well, there was a slide somewhere. So hopefully, no slide. So hopefully that we'll get that posted and put up on the website tomorrow. But the ballot document will read local sales and use tax at the rate of 1/4% in addition to all state and local sales tax and use taxes. So it may be confusing for some. So we'll do as much as we can to educate our public about the use of these dollars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? I know Dr. Harrison is going to her seat, but she could definitely answer questions sitting down.
No, I wanted to say that in all the time I have served on this board for the last 14 years, I have never served with anyone who did not want us to be able to increase our teacher supplements. And this is such an exciting opportunity for the voters and for teachers and for people who care about public education to come out and support a way for our teachers to get paid the money that they are absolutely worth. And so I'm excited for all of us, and I'm excited for the history of our district to finally have an opportunity to go forward and actually come up with a real raise for our teachers.
Thank you.
I am also excited. I agree with Board Member Mott Singer. It's pastime for us to show our teachers how much we value and appreciate them. And we're just excited about this opportunity for this quarter-cent sales tax to do just that. We're also excited and looking forward to showing our classified employees, and as you said, the backbone, exactly how we feel, and we're going to do the same coming soon. Thank you.
You know, I've been on this board for quite a while, and I don't think I've ever come that I haven't seen the people that are sitting on this first and second row. They have worked hard. They deserve to be paid more. We need to get out and work. The only way we're going to get this done is to work. We've got signs, we've got little handout things. I want you to tell everybody you like, everybody you don't like. I want you to get out there and help us get this done. We have got to get this done for these teachers, for the people that have worked their bones off, for children. And this is one thing that we've got to get past. But the only way we can do that is by working hard and doing it together. So get you a sign, stick it in your yard, get you these little handout things, give it to everybody, wear your hat, whatever you've got to do, and be there when the voters come in, because some of these people don't understand exactly what they're voting for. You know, some just show up, and we got to be sure that we're letting them know that they are voting for people that mean so much to us and mean even more to our children.
That's right.
Thank you. Next, we will have Policy 1100, Equity by Effie McMillan.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, our Vice Chair, and Dr. Hairston. I'm here to present you with a brief overview of Equity Policy 1100. Out of the collaboration and work through the Culture, Climate, and Equity Committee, an equity policy was drafted November 2019. In December 2019, the Culture, Climate, and Equity Committee provided feedback on that drafted policy, and based on that feedback, revisions were made, and the draft policy was posted 7 days for public comment. Due to the policy coming out of an ad hoc committee, the drafted policy was presented to the board in December, and the board was asked to approve this policy to be posted 30 days for public comment. On January 13th, 2020, the CCE committee, I'll just say it for short, met to review all of the public comments that had been received. During the session, we went through each section of the policy and the corresponding feedback that was received for each section. In an effort to keep the policy broad yet comprehensive, few changes were made to the December draft. However, during this meeting, it was shared how the public comments were being addressed in one or more of the district's 5 strategic planning goals, the alignment to one or more of the pillars for equity that's been identified in the policy, and the potential for some actions to be detailed in an administrative regulation. A few of the changes included adding language proficiency throughout when mentioned in student groups, and to add the task of evaluation to the work of the Equity Office. Feedback from the Policy Committee also resulted in the reference of ESSA, which was in one of the original drafts, to be removed under Section 2, the heading Purpose, because of the concern that the law might change. So tonight, we are bringing forth the final version of the equity policy that was approved by the Policy Committee and is on the agenda for approval tonight, final approval. So if approved, the equity policy will help guide the district's work to improve educational outcomes for our students. Any questions?
I just want to thank you and the committee for all of the hard work to get us to this point. Thank you.
I would just like to say, again, thank you to the community for this hard work, especially through the leadership of Board Member Kaplan. Although this committee was set up through a special privilege that the chair of the board has by way of creating special committees that only last the duration of that chair's time. This was not an individual inspired or implemented effort. This has been a whole community, whole board effort. And we would not be here tonight without it. But what I will say about, I think, the significance of this equity policy, and, you know, I don't have a problem coming to the compromise that it's not perfect because we just got started. And as we move forward with this policy, I think that it will grow into one of the models of our state where other school districts will come to see what we're doing, because this is about our children and making sure that we hold everyone accountable for all children. So we appreciate the patience of the committee and this community to get us, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, to this point. Not all school districts have equity policies. Surely now we are part of the large urban districts that reflect the diversity of our community. So I think that this community deserves an applaud of commitment to making sure that all of our children are being educated appropriately. Thank you. Yes.
Ms. McMillan?
Yes.
The ARs, or administrative regulations that you referred to, will the committee have some input into those ARs as we go along in this process? Because I know that that's kind of, or it's been my experience, that that's kind of the meat of any policy. It's like the work, it's the legs of a policy that actually goes out to do the work. So will they be a part of those? Do you foresee that, or will that be a decision made?
So,
Deanne, why don't you talk about how we draft ARs?
So ARs, or administrative regulations, are kind of the procedures for how you implement the policy. And so typically the AR is developed by the superintendent with, of course, input by various stakeholders. And then ultimately, it doesn't require formal board approval, but there is input from other staff members and other stakeholders about that. So I believe there was a draft AR that was submitted back in December.
Exactly.
And
So it was just a sample.
it was a sample AR. Okay, all right. But that is something that will be, ultimately coming back with. But that's how it's created. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I hope that answered your question. Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the added discussion item, the nomination of a legislative committee member. Dion is going to share with us an update about this process, and then we can nominate one of our board members.
So I believe you all received an email from the North Carolina School Board Association that referenced an invitation for you all to nominate a board member to serve as an at-large member of the legislative committee. This legislative committee is going to be a part of the larger team that is comprised of some of the board of directors for the School Board Association, as well as members of the 8 education districts across the state, to help draft the legislative agenda for the General Assembly. And so they're inviting local boards to nominate someone for an at-large position, and then the School Board Association president is going to select who those at-large members will be. And so the one commitment they ask is that whoever the nominee is, that they are committed to attending 2 upcoming meetings, one on July 20th from 12 to 3 at their Raleigh office, and one on September 14th from 12 to 3 also at the Raleigh office. And so they're asking that whoever it is that ultimately receives this nomination, be committed to attending both of those meetings.
Do we need to vote at this moment, or go into it needs to go to the action item?
Yes, ma'am, it would need to be an action item.
Okay. Are there any questions or discussion about the nominee process, or?
So when we make when we approve a nominee, they're not guaranteed the position. It goes to the state for the state approval.
Correct. You're voting on who you want to nominate to be ultimately considered by the state, North Carolina School Board Association president. And they will select one at-large member from each of the 8 larger districts across the state.
Any other questions? Okay. The next agenda item is our action items. And first, we have the consider approval of the Premier Home Health Care Services contract. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next action item is to consider approval of policy 1100.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I think motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of personnel recommendations. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the Louisville Middle School construction contract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The last item is to consider approval of a nomination for the legislative committee member.
I would like to nominate Dana Jones.
Are there any other, well, exactly, I'm sorry. Is there questions or discussion?
I just would like to say I think Dana would do an excellent job and represent us well.
Any other question or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda items. Is there a consider approval of a disaster relief resolution? Right here it has presenter Wayne Laughlin. Is there going to be some conversation about that before we?
Madam Chair, this was presented at Buildings and Grounds Committee back in October, I believe. And the committee was in support of moving forward with requesting these funds.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's see here. The next consent agenda item is the general personnel report. Is there a motion? Second. Any discussion or question? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Before we begin the section of our meeting in which anyone can comment on anything, we say good night to the Cable 2 viewers, and we thank you for watching, and this concludes our broadcast. And I would just reiterate that